We're back, baby! Hey folks, MasakoX here, and we did it! We survived, possibly, the drought of Dragon Ball Super. Yes, in 2018, Dragon Ball Super was, in my opinion, hastily rushed towards its conclusion. We saw it in episode 125, it ended in 131 6 weeks later, but now, the actual series may be coming back in 2023, according to DBS Chronicles, who has been supposedly sitting on this news for a very long time, waiting for the right moment when all the stars would align and things would actually make a lick of sense. Similar to not long after Resurrection F came out in 2015, about like a month later or even 2 weeks, we got the news about the original Super Run. And here we have this tweet, which from now on will probably be seen as one of the holy relics of the Dragon Ball fandom. By the way, I will be going back to my weekly reviews and the debriefs and all that stuff, and we'll have plenty more discussions, trust me. We will be back to making much more content than we have been. But then this gets me thinking, should we have a new anime? Because quite frankly, the Dragon Ball community and the fandom doesn't really know what it wants. This could be at the detriment of whatever comes next, because as we've seen in Superhero, it's quite clear that the Dragon Room, Shueisha, Aki Oyoku, and even Toriyama himself are just now giving in to what the fandom wants, but what the fandom wants isn't exactly clear. Right here, this tweet says, weekly Dragon Ball episodes set after the Universe Survival arc, so post-Tournament of Power, are in production. Anime will be back in 2023, so supposedly, the beginnings of the anime are in the works, which is good, instead of a 2-month lead-in time before we got Super Episode 1 and the travesty of what unfolded subsequently. And then on top of that, we'll be getting what I recommended for a very long time, to have a movie every 2 to 3 years. Like with Resurrection F, like with Broly, now with Superhero, even though technically Superhero was meant to come out in 2021, but then, obviously, various factors came into play. We got it in middle of 2022. You have the anime, you have the manga, you have a movie coming out every 2 to 3 years to make sure that, in terms of visual media, you're covered. You got plenty of things to keep people interested who may not necessarily want to read the manga. But this then begs the question, what are we actually going to have in terms of content? What we do know based on DBS Chronicles' tweet is that it's after the Tournament of Power. But then Akio Oyoku, who is basically the spokesperson for Toriyama since Toriyama doesn't like to talk to people, said that the anime and manga are two very different things. Things may be lifted from one source, they may not be. It's really up to what Toriyama wants to do. And what Toriyama wants to do isn't exactly clear. So this is just making me a little bit concerned as to really what we could expect. But fortunately, one of my Twitter followers came up with a very, very good point that I wish to share with you, Drawnborn. Based on what we got, the reason why we think we could basically just have the manga plot is for a few reasons, because the Moro and Granola arc literally connect to each other, which is something that has not been done before. They are very much linked. Chapter 67, the whole idea of 7-3's head in the pit, and it's collected by the original creators of 7-3 and then captured by Granola, who then gives it to the Heaters, that is all intrinsically linked, even though 7-3 has just disappeared and has not been mentioned since. Broly gets mentioned in the manga as a little bonus of the Tournament path. Yes, Toyotaro did draw some clips, as we can see right here, where this is essentially just like a little kind of catch-up thing and memories included, because he's talking to Miris Goku about, oh, that time I fought that Broly guy. And it means that it is connected. The Broly movie is involved in the Moro story, albeit as a flashback. But mind you, the Bardock special was mentioned in the Frieza saga, so it's sort of connected in that regard too. And then there are connections, of course. I don't know whether you can see it or not, but it's just a continuation. So you get Gogeta taking out Broly, who gets wished away by Chilai. Yeah, I think we're going to be getting the manga story in whatever anime that we're going to get, because as Drawnborn implies, Toei is really planning for it, because Shueisha and Toei, they work together to provide a cohesive story in the manga. So certain things may or may not occur, but probably the basic story of what we could get in Moro and Granola will be carried over into an anime. So this actually really assured me and inspired me to make this video. So Cheers, Drawnborn, very much obliged. I did do a video about what we could expect for a Moro anime and what we would like to actually see from it, so I'll leave a link to it up top, by the way, if you want to check that out in more detail. If we do get the basic plot progression of the manga, so we get the Moro, we get flashes to Broly, we then get Granola, and then in turn we may get Superhero, if then that gets translated into the anime and there are anime adaptations, which for Broly I really don't want there to be after what we have with Beerus, that might be fine. There may be some there may be some changes and quirks, yeah, fine, that's all very well and good. But what if they go in a different direction and something completely new? This is what troubles me. More and more repetitious content. Just more and more Saiyans, and more punchy, and less of the character-driven moments. Do not mess with the iconography, because the fandom does not want you to. And why am I this concerned? Well, it all sadly has to do with money. So take a look at this, folks. This is Dragon Ball Super Broly and its Japanese weekend takings at the box office. So it started off very strong with 9.2 million in its opening weekend, which is very good for Japan. And then we get the subsequent weeks. It does trail off a little bit, but it remains over $1 million for about a good 5 weeks. It gets a cool $34 million. And considering the budget is $8.5 million, you've already made your money back, and then look at that, 115 million in worldwide takings. Yeah, wow. Toei managed to come up with something good, and it followed the formula of Goku, Vegeta, Broly, Saiyans, punchy, big fights, very minimal moments of character development and fan service aside from that. Yeah, obviously you have a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end, but primarily it's about an hour and a bit's worth of fighting. Now let's take a look at Superhero. So you can't really fully compare it right now because it's only been out for 3 weeks instead of the 8 or so that Broly has been in. And already you can start to see a little bit of problems. Now I will point out, this is just to be fair with Superhero, it was actually shown in fewer screens, about like, I think 100 less screens than Broly. Instead of 9.2 million on its first week, it got 4.9. Now you could easily argue, well, Broly came out around Christmas, whereas Superheroes come out in the summer when people are away and busy doing other stuff. Well, that is very true to point out. But the fact remains is that the numbers don't lie, cash is king. And already it's starting to trail off, and it's only just gone over 12 million. So you might be thinking, oh okay, it's probably made its money back, but has it though? Because what techniques they used for this movie were very much experimental. They were experimental, brand new, they probably cost at least maybe double of Broly, which was all 2D and a little bit of 3D there for a little bit extra flourish, but this is primarily 3D with 2D elements. I wouldn't be surprised if you include that with marketing. The budget for this movie would have been about 20 mil, probably $20 million. This is going to have a bit more of a hurdle to jump over, and okay, it will make it because come on, it's Dragon Ball. Really annoying part of this is that Superhero was answering a lot of things the fandom wanted. Let's have Gohan and Piccolo do more stuff. Let's have the Earthlings and other characters do stuff as well and contribute to a main fight. Let's include classic villains. Let's not have the Saiyans do too much, but they're there. This is the thing. This is what is making me worry. Because quite clearly, Toriyama and the Dragon Room are listening to what the fandom wants, and they go, here you go, this is what you want, right? Is it though? 23.6 mil after 3 weeks. 12. That is nearly half of Broly. That is not good. Even though, according to what people have said online, it is a very good movie. But it doesn't actually address what the majority of Dragon Ball fans want. And that is Saiyans and punchy. And that is going to clearly confuse the bods who are actually making this show for Toriyama with his oversight. That is going to cause a little bit of a problem. So this is what is making me worry for the future of Dragon Ball. And I've boiled it down to like pros and cons, because you get Superhero got a lot of things fixed in the iconography, so it actually did for once experiment with characters that have been around for nearly 40 years at this point. The experimental animation technique mostly worked, so Toei's been working on this since Resurrection F and a little bit in Battle of Gods, and it's finally gotten something which is fairly decent actually. A lot of the characters who didn't do stuff got to do stuff, which is really good. Pan and Piccolo actually got Gohan off his rear end and contribute and finally recognize that he needs to find balance in his life. That was fantastic. There are a lot of moments which set the bar for things to come in the future. And it's quite clear that the fact that Goku, Vegeta, and Broly, they were in this movie, they are very much going to be the feature of the next movie because, you know, it's being built up towards something. Whether it's Frieza and Cooler, don't really know. Hopefully Frieza is involved in this regard. But the cons from all of this is that the box office numbers don't lie. Cash is king. If Superhero does not make as much money as Broly did, it's going to send a message that, oh, I guess the fandom didn't want this after all. Okay, let's go back to just Saiyans. Yeah, that's then going to anger the fandom even more in various circles, and then they'll just go, well, what do you want? We don't know what we want. They may just drop their tools, take their toys and go home, or just give us the same old schlock again. It might make people happy, it gets money, that's all they'll care about really. We'll see probably a retreat to the same old formula, which means that Dragon Ball is going to be even less likely to try new things, and that is what is concerning me quite a bit. So going back to this original tweet, so that means we've got things in full circle for you folks. Weekly Dragon Ball episodes set after the Universe Survival Arc are in production. Great. It's good to have the anime back. All of this meaning that interest in the anime and the overall Dragon Ball sphere will be back to where it was back in 2015, 16, 17, a little bit of 18. That's really, really good. And there are going to be movies to accompany it. That is good too, because you get a movie, it's an occasion, it's an event, that's fantastic. And the anime keeps people interested, unlike the manga with its monthly schedule. With a weekly schedule, there is very little time to be downtrodden or feeling annoyed about an episode, because don't worry, next week there'll be another episode which should fix the problem. Or maybe makes things worse. It's a bit of potluck, really. If they actually go with what Drawnborn said earlier, their idea, I will actually be okay with it, honestly, because it just means that they'll just do what they did with the manga series, maybe adapt it for anime, canon, and timelines and stuff like that that you don't see in the manga. That's fine, you can correct a lot of issues from the manga and improve the pacing and the timing. And if we get the weekly release schedule with Granola, it might improve the pacing of that and make it much more palatable for people who didn't bother with the manga, and it might appeal more to anime audiences than it would do for manga readers. And of course, there's going to be Bardock, so hopefully they fix that whole Bardock pacing thing, because that will be a little bit tricky. These are my thoughts about Super coming back. Of course, I'm going to be excited to see what we could expect, and I'll be even more excited when we get even more solid confirmations from main sources. I'll be looking forward to it, and I'll be sure to report that to you as always. So here are my thoughts. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are, and if you want to see more information about what I think could happen in the Morris Saga, do check out this video here, and I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!